Pharisees go to where the scolding is best. They flow to it like water. This is Chris.
This is Kevan.
And it's been a minute. Just this week we had Delin do his question mark on if they should stop Thrive and doing the Thrive concerts. Or concerts? Are they concerts? I guess they're concerts.
Do they have concerts?
It sort of is. It's like a big party thing or whatever. What else happened? Was something else happen in Mormon world?
Well, I don't know. Just with everything going on in the world in general, it's kind of hard to like. Everybody's attention is scattered 16 different ways.
I'm going to show something first. We talked about. I was joking about doing the best and just becoming the best, and I said, well, maybe I could become the best flat picker in Utah. And little did I know, this fellow here, Jake Workman, lives in Utah. This is a little bit of a black pill, you know.
Yeah.
We were talking about that white pill. Just try to become the best of where you're around.
This is a Matt Foley moment.
Yeah, I had no idea Jake Workman, he's the lead guitarist for Ricky Skaggs and the Kentucky Thunder, lives in like Draper, Utah, and is a Mormon. Watch this stuff. You might think I left it on double speed this time, but I did not.
Dang.
That's the stuff I've been working on the past. I've been playing guitar forever, but the past year I said I wanted to become like a real deal flat picker, and I'm trying to learn banjo all at the same time. I play them both already, but I'm like trying to become real deal at both of them. That's the type of flat picking that I'm doing, and I'm getting pretty fast. I'm getting pretty good, but little did I know, like the best around was right up the road. But I don't think it plays much in Utah, so I can alter my my belief that I can become the best guy who gigs around Utah all the time, maybe. But I bet you he plays here all the time too. That fella is an LDS fella, and it's a crying shame you LDS people go chasing after Imagine Dragson and not that dude. Holy crap! That is shredding, and that is music, and it's unbelievable, and I can't even believe what he does. And no, we'll just lick Imagine Dragons nuts and let them Imagine drag you right out of the church too at the same time.
Yeah, no kidding. Yep. I that's what I noticed about their whole Love Loud thing a long time ago. I was just like, you know, what's
better? What's more John DeLynn, that or John DeLynn? But I mean, I guess they hangs out. Sure. He did the whole movie with John DeLynn, that documentary. Yeah, John DeLynn's in that documentary. That documentary was so full of crap. I mean, most of those activistic things are.
Yeah. So how's he faring in the hot water right now?
What do you mean?
John DeLynn.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, that is the other thing that came out. It came out that thing we were talking about where they're trying to get out in front of them having too much money or something. Well, we predicted that it was just too much money. We didn't think it was going to be like crazy corruption. It was just going to come out that he makes too dang much for people to feel comfortable with it. And it did come out with an exact number. It was right around the what I was guessing at. It's like $236,000 a year.
Yeah.
And who knows how much he kicks down. I think it's left out of that through those 501c3s, they also do all sorts of perks. Like they probably like lease cars to it. And
well, if you're 503c, then you get a lot of perks anyway. But that's the issue. That's the whole issue. Yeah. You know, it's like, hey, listen, if you don't want to claim, you know, being a nonprofit, you know what I mean, you can
the other thing
make
is
as much money as you want. You make $500,000 a year, that's fine.
Yeah, and then I'm sure that like the other rest of the money just gets written off, like it's stuff that they do and use that they write off as well.
Right.
And because we know that the place makes over $500,000 a year, and really he's the only one making money from it, or a couple other people like Kara and the Gerardo dude or whatever. But his wife, I'm sure, also pulls in some of that money. I bet you he kicks a ton of that to his wife as well.
Right.
It's a lot of money, and I think it rubs a lot of people the wrong way or trips them out. And honestly, the only thing that trips me out about it is that it's done in a 501c3 way. Like,
yeah,
to me, it's just like make the dumb money, have it come in. But again, I think they would lose a ton of money if they did it that way, because some of the only ways that they get people donating money is because the people donating to it are getting their tax write-offs by donating to it.
Right.
All that stuff's always so left off. Like, so much of modern day corporatist charity or philanthropy is bullshit. It's just people pumping.
It's not like you can't make money. I mean, look at how many content creators are out there, doing their thing, and they're utilizing Patreon or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not like he couldn't just do it without having the 503c, or if he did it at 503c, figure out another way. I don't have a problem with somebody running a nonprofit and making money, as long as they're not doing it, through the 503c beyond, the profit mark. You know what I mean? It's like, cover your costs, cover your, the expenses of your employees and all that kind of stuff. But when you're making, 200 plus or whatever, that's kind of where you're like, I don't know.
Well, that's one of the stuff he was getting out, like making such a great big deal about, was claiming that that's equitable for what he brings to the table and what he offers people, and what his doctorate degree is in, and all that sorts of stuff. I'm sure there's some other people at charities around the world making that much money too, but at the same time, it's just,
Joel Osteen, man.
I don't think anybody buys that's, especially when you are spending your life appealing to a bunch of leftists who don't think you should be making anything. Right. And the high wire act, you got to tap dance to try to make sense of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bunch of nutty nutties.
Yeah.
Let's look at the other side, though, because the other side's got their problems too.
Yep.
We're going to talk about an email that was sent out today by the Church News. We've seen something like this before. I did an episode on this when we talked about some of the verbiage that is coming into church communication. And the one I did before was on microaggression. This one here is very interesting. Just received it a few hours ago. And I want to break this down.
You said you haven't even seen it, right? And you get
I didn't get the email. Usually I get church newsroom email stuff, but I didn't get this email. So
it is about International Women's Day, which is great. But you're going to see something very interesting here. And I think that this is the way we're going to see this, just like in the last one we did from the communications department of the church. I think this is the way we're going to see this start to seep into our communication, website, departments, and other things in the church. So let me show you what this email was. And we're going to start with a header of the email. You can see here in the top point, this was Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. For International Women's Day, it says, read about 9 women who have inspired and shaped these church leaders. Fabulous. And you should see these stories. They're great, very Christ-centered. But then it changes. It says, this year's theme for International Women's Day is #break the bias. Okay. Why is the church talking about that? The church doesn't talk about these things. The brethren don't talk about these things. Why is the communications department of the church talking about these types of things? Break the bias is the hashtag and theme of International Women's Day. So it's just odd that they would bring it up. And then it says, people all over the world are encouraged, and this is the exact same thing as Ibram Kendi's anti-racism and Robin DiAngelo's white fragility. It's the same exact thing. It says, people all over the world are encouraged to call out and break gender bias, discrimination, and stereotyping in order to create a more, and here comes the words, diverse, equitable, and inclusive world. Now, I want to break these things apart a little bit so that you can understand. I think people are getting very confused. It's like, why? If you know anything about DEI, right, diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know that it's pregnant with issues and problems. And
it is. I mean, quick breaks that all down, but
see, the thing about it is this is what I know that we've all got. I mean, we're all under the scrutiny of the past. You know what I mean? We're all sitting there judging ourselves based on the past all the time. But I remember, and Chris and I talk about this, I believe in growing up in Murray, Utah was actually pretty dang good. Obviously, we can always do better, but I I remember, I don't think I felt a hint of racism really within our schools or anything like that growing up, but we're constantly being judged based on the past. I feel like that's really causing us some problems. I think that it's not that the church, it's not, let's parse this out. It's not that the gospel of Jesus Christ hasn't been addressing these issues for a long time. And I think that maybe we as human beings have had to catch up to the bar that Christ set, you know, because if you look at the texts that are written, they are written in a way that it is about true equality, and and people are going to have arguments. I guess they'll again argue the past. They'll argue some of the things within scripture that whatever, I don't know. But I think for me, when I look at the whole message of the gospel of Jesus Christ, it is about God seeing his children equally, that he's no respecter of persons. And I think that we've had to come a long way for sure. These messages, these words, especially the word equity, is such a bad word. You know, and people don't realize that it doesn't mean equality. In fact, it almost kind of means, in what I see, it they're almost diametrically opposed.
Yeah, this whole podcast by James Lindsay goes into it. Although this one's pretty old, we've already learned a whole bunch more about what people mean by it, and you can follow other hashtags with that to see it. Diversity, the equity one is the one that's pretty obviously it's talking about equality. Equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity.
And that is the Marxist word.
Yeah. But the other ones, they say diversity is the actual diversity they want is that you need to bring in our diversity commissars. That's what diversity is. It has nothing to do with even bringing diverse humans into the workplace. And inclusion is let everybody be an interest into your
Well, and that whole, I mean, they get caught in that, you know, and they've been called out and caught in that, you know. Peterson did a really good job at it, you know, just like, hey, well, why are we not having these conversations with bricklayers?
So I saw somebody put it out. They call it the Glass Cellar, and that is there's this level, you know, the glass ceiling. The women supposedly don't go above this level, but there's a glass cellar that they don't go below this level where there's suddenly dangerous jobs.
It's only C-suite, you know, things and positions of power and politics and that kind of stuff that really is being argued. And I mean, it makes sense when you look at it and like follow the roots of the philosophy, the political philosophy behind it all, is that it is all relegated down, just like the postmodernists will say in their own words, that it is relegated down to power. And that's exactly how they're going about it. They want the power. So bricklayers don't mean crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Truckers, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? We don't
work in I had an uncle worked in the sewers for 25 years, and he's gone.
Yeah.
The thing that's surprised about it is he's gone deaf from it. It's like so loud down there.
And the new hot topic, you know, hey, is that gonna translate to if we end up in another war, and if a draft happens, is that going to translate to drafting with
that's the thing,
equality?
Kate Kelly's a big pusher of the equal, whatever that act is, and that act does put them equally in line for the draft if they get it passed through. Right. Although I'm sure over time, last time I looked at that was like a year or so ago. I bet you over time they've removed that portion out of it, but
right.
But I think they do have that double-edged sword that they're pushing for, and I don't even think they're realizing that they're pushing for it in a lot of the cases.
Personally, I'm not a proponent of it, because I do see that. Here's the thing: when we're talking about like stuff like what do women uniquely bring to the table, and that is they're the ones who bring children into this world. You know what I mean? And that's a pretty important thing. I can't do it. I mean, I can assist in, obviously, but I can't do that. And I don't see why that shouldn't be something that's completely celebrated, you know what I mean, and protected too.
I think that's why the church plays along with it, is because they're playing to some sort of ESG scores, because they can get voted out of stuff if they don't play along with these sorts of things. So they got to show that some publication somewhere is pumping out the message.
Who is it that always puts that in?
That's critical drinking. This is a pretty funny thing here. Right in the middle of everything, that screwball Vaush is going after J.K. Rowling again.
I'm on Twitter when all of a sudden I see this. And I'm like, no way, dude. No way. This is not real. Get out of here. Oh my God, it made the news. So this is on 8th of March taking place on International Women's Day when Vaush, who is a communist YouTuber, decided to pick a fight with J.K. Rowling. Now, what started the fight is that J.K. Rowling pointed out how a Labour MP who is cherishing and praising women cannot define what a woman is. And it is very progressive to be unable to define what a woman is. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I guess for my European listeners, I have to provide a little bit of context on why this can't be done. Because you get canceled if you give the definition of a woman. You see, there are two ways of thinking. There is the conservative school of thought, and that is the idea that woman is a social construct which has roots in observable reality.
I've got my friend James, who is a composer, and I'm going to have him on to talk about that racism in music type thing. But I was just explaining to him this week, he didn't understand like how deep the construct stuff goes. And I just got done covering that quite a bit, trying to cover it as simply as we can on Jonathan Streeter's channel. And I think some people still don't understand how far they go with it, but it's kind of crazy to me how they're able to translate that onto any sort of average person's brain. But look at what Vaush said to J.K. Rowling on International Women's Day. All J.K. Rowling had to do was shut the F up, and she could have been almost uncritically beloved for like a century. Women be quieter, and be quieter and start apologizing. Challenge.
The funny thing is, I was watching earlier the debate that he had with James Lindsay and
oh, he's such a knucklehead.
Oh,
he doesn't know anything about it. I don't think Vaush has ever debated with James Lindsay.
Oh, who wasn't he on that
on
debate
the panel?
With the
actual justice? No, that was another dude named I forget his name already. He's not memorable.
But it's funny because I mean, obviously Vaush has been in those arguments on CRT.
Well, he keeps going and arguing, like he gets like viral videos trying to argue against James Lindsay, and then Michaela Peterson had him on separately, like
on that's the same right
podcast, yes, but they came on.
That's what I was thinking about that one. I'm just wondering how he sidestepped the original sin of that of the woke religion.
Well, strangely enough, he has been getting canceled all the time on his own side, but he has been getting called in, and he has backtracked a little bit on some critical race theory stuff.
Was that actually tweeted out on International Women's Day?
Yeah. I don't even think he put two and two together, but the part is that he's standing up for real women, trans women.
Happy International Women's Day. Shut the F up, woman. You know.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. The irony.
Hold on, check this out. So this is like 7-hour long podcast. Sitch and Adam here cover this whole thing. If you see the title, but it's Breadtube Civil War. Vaush attacks critical race theory? ? And one of the things that they pull up in it is that FD Signifier, this YouTuber who started saying that all these other video essayists are idiots because even Marxism is white supremacy.
Research and outward rejection of white supremacy on paper, the vast majority have not taken the time to dismantle the white racial frame through which they see the world. So even with
this is why I'm so against CRT, is because CRT makes that literally impossible.
Even the breadtubers, they're still racist, Adam. They can be so woke and they're still racist because they're white. Yeah. They haven't dismantled their whiteness, Adam.
Yeah. Do you listen? How many white people want to consume content from black creators that are just calling them racist? Like, how is that?
I know it does, apparently.
I mean, do you think there's a huge demand for that? The white woke person will subscribe to the channel, but never watch the content.
Maybe. I don't know. What's the guy's? I cannot remember this guy's name for the life of me.
I can't either.
I keep wanting to call him JD Salinger. JD Salinger is not the guy's name.
But they might get invited to BYU.
Yeah. So I recognize his name because it's FD signifier. I might mix it up between signifier or signified, but as soon as you start talking about signifier and signified, you're talking Derrida. That's
Right.
That's post-structuralism crap. What a word is the signifier, like the written out word, and then the thing it's supposed to refer to
Is the
the signified. And to Derrida, they can never really actually match. One never actually matches the other.
Right.
Which is it's just so funny because like they'll always say, well, this stuff here doesn't have anything to do with postmodernism here, and here's a critical race theorist, and his name's FD signifier.
I guess there is a large population that wants to hear this racist content.
Intentions, the behavior and viewpoints born out of the space is still going to be rooted in racist frameworks unless the concept of whiteness is addressed. Essentially, if you read Marx and Trotsky and Gramsci and what you want to do ski and whomever else, but not Du Bois, Fanon, Hooks, Crenshaw, etc., you might be a leftist white supremacist.
But the thing is like he's got a point against Vaush, and that Vaush hasn't actually read that stuff. Like the ultimate, maybe he has now because he's had a dang year to do it. But he started coming on these things as a debate me bro, being a debateist, talking about things that he obviously hadn't read a stitch of.
Right.
And that, to me, that's the epitome of sophistry. Like the epitome of sophistry is you know that you don't know the thing and you're going to come in and make an argument for it. And he does what most of the people do about it. Like some people have already argued with me on here is they try to say it must certainly not say those things as crazy as you think they say.
Right.
It must certainly. Have you read it? No, but certainly.
Yeah.
It's at a university. It's got some good ideas in it. How do you know?
It's the Mott and Bailey.
Because certainly it does. We were talking about how like even those lefties start eating each other up, and those guys point out, if you watch that whole entire 6 hours, I thought they had a clip of it out too, that once Vaush starts defending himself, he suddenly sounds exactly like James Lindsay. Right. I think they have like a clip of it saying like Vaush is James Lindsay, you know what I mean? And he doesn't even realize it. But as soon as his channel's under attack and he's under attack because all these things are the acid with no container, they realize, oops, I got to start making these arguments, which is what John DeLynne's going to have to do sooner or later, because if he keeps trying to walk the high wire act of thinking that he can play with the poison and the poison won't poison him.
Right.
Too bad, dude. It's going to get you. So they had that whole thing about, oh man, that's what I should pull up is that video of him with the Meldrum dude with like that centralized America Book of Mormon stuff. And it just turned into the end. It turned into like him doing this like apology for them even trying to talk about racism at all.
Did we gloss over quick? I guess
no, because we were just using them to set up the thing that happened with the church. And if you want to hear Quick's thoughts on it, which are always good, go listen to Quick.
Yeah.
Although there's some stuff I disagree with Quick a little bit on that. And what I disagree with is like he'll say stuff like even things like International Women's Day was always a good idea. I'm like, all the stuff started from people pulling this crap. It's all people pulling this crap. You know, it's like there's always some sort of level of you can have it up to here and you can take it up to here. And even I have to do that with liberalism. Like at some point you have to say, it was okay up to here, but at some point we got to stop.
And a lot of it is here's what I kind of am seeing with a lot of this. It's like, what's the intention behind all of this stuff? Because it's like, yeah, here comes Mother's Day. We're not going to worry about Mother's Day. It's not part of the message. You know what I mean? It's like we're International Women's Day is, but Mother's Day is not. Now, why not? Why not? That's the question. So I see what you're saying. I mean, I don't have a problem. You know, I appreciate the women.
But the thing is, like, I guarantee if you go and find the people who pushed and like made a move to go make an International Women's Day, there's going to be BLMness behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm just saying. It's like, what are the intentions? Well, the intentions are Marxism. You know, and if it leads back to that, obviously it's not good.
Let's just go through this and like just look up the words white. We always end up landing on something to start talking about with all the scrabbly goofiness. Let's hear their ideas of white. Now, this is a guy who talks about, he thinks there's ideas that the Book of Mormon could have happened here in the United States. And because that becomes some sort of point of nationalistic pride, it starts having to become a white racism issue, you know. But during this, he's just taking them on generally for the general concepts in the Book of Mormon.
How does that even translate, man? I don't even understand how that could be.
Well, you always got to use your critical eye to steer it into the
yes.
dumbest possible thing to make it something that we have to focus on this. Like they even get to the end of this podcast and say, "Oh, we were going to actually talk about what the ideas of the thing are, but first we had to harangue you for 2.5 hours about possible racism."
The Lamanites loathsome or ugly or repugnant to the Nephites who were white-skinned. Would you say you believe that?
It's a, you know, he keeps trying to get these guys on, and when he gets them on, I don't know why these guys go on to it.
Rodney,
it's like
Rodney,
a
are you racist?
It's like a struggle session. It's really always a struggle session.
Nuanced, a little, you know, somewhat, but
yes.
I mean, the Book of Mormon actually does call it a what do they call it?
A curse?
I think with I think it's the Bible that actually calls it a curse, doesn't it?
Primate skin is actually white or light. Their
It's
hair
the
is
hair.
dark.
Yeah.
But if you shave a gorilla, their skin is maybe whiter than yours.
A gorilla?
That's what he's saying.
I don't think that's true at all.
I think like I think of a chimp, like I've
Chimpanzees maybe, but gorillas, like
their faces are definitely not.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think that holds. I don't think that's.
See if you can pull up like a picture of like a skinned gorilla or something.
Okay. Gorillas are like
their faces are definitely black skin,
but it's not like they're totally like thick fur everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Evolved as far from the black.
The thing is like all this, he's like I think he's putting stuff in his mouth because he wasn't even like talking about race or anything.
Apes, and so white people had evolved further, and so that way we could treat otherwise other human beings with darker skin as inhuman, and actually, I mean, there were scientists
he's not
that
talking
actually
about he's not talking about his ideas. He's talking about other people's weird old ideas. Right?
Black people and actually put them into cages in New York and offered them as the evidence for evolution because they hadn't evolved.
Oh, he's trying to make a point that it was the evolutionists who got more racist than he ever got. The ones who just believe skin comes from God or whatever.
They hadn't evolved as far as we white people had, and predominantly
lighter skin
white
people.
or even Asiatic. It's not just a white thing.
Right.
Black people have been to somewhat ostracized in any society that's not black.
Right.
And white people have been ostracized in communities that are primarily black. And I think it's human nature.
Right.
But
okay, here, just a fact check here. I want.
Did you share it?
Yeah, I'm gonna fact check John DeLynn here. We're gonna look at hairless gorillas and hairless chimpanzees. So let's see what. There we go. That's a hairless chimpanzee.
What? That is not white. Oh, that's a chimp. I thought chimpanzees were more white than that.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's see. There we go. Now that's not totally hairless, but I mean, obviously it's not, you can see its skin.
So yeah, that is definitely not going to be white.
John DeLynn, like, I don't know.
What are they even talking about? What does it even freaking matter?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is it's like, okay, John, listen, you're not going down the right path, dude. Gosh, that's almost like as offensive as Brad Wilcox.
Well, he's trying to put it in his mouth. He's trying to put it in this guy's mouth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just laying traps.
Dark skin is not inferior to light skin or white skin. No. You're making it very clear that you don't see white skin as superior.
Look at the NBA and the NFL. I mean, you know, which one's superior?
Right.
Like that should be kind of like pretty close to the end of the
dark skin is not in
conversation on that. Like they still got 2 hours of racism to go, and he
looks like he's gonna drop the F-bomb.
Let's see.
Not because he thinks white is better than dark.
Right.
Next one.
Whether we have black, white, red, or yellow.
The thing is, like, it's so remedial. It's so like remedial first and second grade stuff. You know, that we have to sit here and stop and talk about for 2.5 hours before we can have any sort of conversation in this lefty world. And yes, you are a lefty nut.
Mm-hmm.
And you aren't.
And they would become
some nuanced middle ground guy.
whiten delights them again and blossom like a rose and become lighter skinned, even to the point where Spencer B. Kimball is like in the 60s and 70s, sort of when the Indian placement program happens and they start bringing prophecy.
Yeah.
What do you make of the whitening of skin by Spencer B. Kimball and others being associated with an increase of
What's the
righteousness?
answer for everybody ever before we can get into what we actually brought you on here for?
As a way for white-skinned people, this is what Thomas Murphy would say, as a way for white-skinned people to find a way to justify or feel better.
This whole entire podcast started because I confronted John Larson on John DeLynne's podcast about them getting overly caught up into this gobbledygook, and they don't even really know what they're in. This, of course, John DeLynne knows less of it than even Vaush does, but they don't even have to know. Like Flip says, every practitioner doesn't have to be a preacher. Every preacher doesn't have to be a theologian. It's like we're so wrapped up in it, and we can see him do it here. Right. And I bet you he hasn't, like JD Signifier said, John DeLynne, who hasn't properly dismantled his whiteness, but me, who is going to be supposedly some sort of anti-whatever thing. I've read all the stuff. I've done the work. I've done it, you know. but that's not dismantling my whiteness, because you have to agree with it. But John DeLynne and Vaush haven't even done the work and haven't talked about Crenshaw and Fanon.
Well, and that's the thing. The thing that's funny is that it's like what's the movie The Death of Stalin, when everybody's kind of like, it's a great movie, you guys should all check that out. They're all the leaders within the communist regime in Russia were kind of like, they all knew that they were potentially next on the chopping block if they did not, but they also were at the same time like trying to be the ones who were going to usurp the power. And it's funny because it's exactly what guys like Vaush, it's exactly what guys like DeLynne here are doing, is that they're trying to push the message, but at any moment,
the message.
at any moment, they might just be the collateral damage caught up in the message, because you know, because
he has to stop and apologize,
and he knows that at any time. I mean, Howard
already
Stern
did
too is like, I mean, Howard Stern hasn't been canceled for all the many overt times that he overtly did blackface. Bad version blackface.
Did you see DeLynne have to apologize for what he said to Kwaku? The Midnight Mormons covered it again. That's like last week or something. But let's see. 15 minutes later, have they gotten off the subject?
Brilliant white. You have to have all the hues.
The thing is, like, this is now called On Mormonism and Racism, and it wasn't supposed to be that at the start. It was supposed to be they were going to cover his ideas.
I think I saw like the update, and it was on like the Heartland or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
So just to restate my question, where do you get your confidence to call these people prophets when we know that they've led us astray, and it's actually been secular civil rights movements that have led us in the right direction?
Civil rights movements have led us in the right direction. Some of them, a bit of them, some of them are just as racist as this stuff. Do you want to know who's against segregating schools or desegregating schools? Do you want to know who doesn't like the segregation of schools? Derek Bell. I actually talked about that on one of the Ex-Mormon websites. Derek
Bell didn't like the integration of schools?
Yeah, Derek Bell thought it was interest convergence. He thought the schools should have stayed segregated, and they should have been separate but equal kind of type stuff, like give them more money and keep them separate. And he's the godfather king of critical race theory.
Right.
White men of European descent who have been maybe the principal authors of so much pain and suffering and bigotry and torment and like racism and misogyny, and
just them, man. They're the only ones who done did it. Right now, I'm listening to Hardcore History is covering like the history of slavery. And it's a really good episode so far. I'm only about halfway through it. It's like 6 hours long, but it turns out slavery was around.
I just want to know that I went back and did my looked into my family history, and the only slaves that my family owned were white.
I look back in my family history, and we were dang Irish, and we were slaves. So, no, indentured servants, because we got to get free when we supposedly paid off all our debts.
As men, straight white men of European descent.
You got that critical eye. You're obsessed about it. You can't do anything in this world because you can't do anything but think about this all the time.
Maybe the principal authors of so much. Maybe that's a function of our white, straight male privilege.
and then
I've crossed like an hour here.
Being a bad thing. primarily whites.
Oh, we don't want to give white.
This is why I don't know why guys go and give them the time of day. Like, why do you go on there just to get put through this? I mean, you're not the person who did any of that old stuff. They can like try to put pressure as they did Brad Wilcox is saying, well, Brigham Young, you guys got to like hold on to all the stuff that Brigham Young said because of this or that and the other. And the Midnight Mormons have had way better conversations about this stuff over the past couple of weeks where they really do kind of get open and deep into it. Whereas you guys just do your big bulbous headed critical race theory stuff of just go dismantle it and not even realize that you too are dismantled. And you'll sit there and try to say, I'm going to dismantle me too. But nah, you don't get it. Dismantling you too means you get the crap out of this seat.
I want to give white people credit.
We can't give white people any credit for any technology advances that have blessed the lives of everybody throughout the entire world.
But that's a deflection. But that's a deflection.
It's not deflection.
That's a deflection from us taking responsibility for as white.
Taking what responsibility, John DeLynn?
Yeah.
As white, as a collective, do you want to know what responsibility I have? I don't have responsibility in it. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah. I'm Irish.
Responsibility for myself and my actions and my thoughts.
But I guarantee it too. Like nobody in their history has like a completely pure family tree. Like there's rape in everybody's family tree. I promise you, somewhere back there. Dan Carlin talks a little bit about that. That some of like the blacks with little bits of white in their skin said, well, I look in the mirror and I see some rape in there. And like hereditarily, that whole entire person is in you. You can't just take the oppressor side of the thing. Hereditarily, you are also that person.
Unfortunately, for me, I can't look in the mirror and see where all the rape happened in my bloodline. And hey, here's the thing, looking back in my I'm actually related to, interestingly enough, I'm related to Edward Longshanks in Braveheart. And I'm also related to Robert the Bruce.
Those Irish, I'm telling you what, the Irish were never on top of anybody. And we got here to the U.S., listen to what Thomas Sowell says about the Irish. And I'm not saying that as like some sort of oppressive thing. I actually have a little bit of a hunch that the reason my family became so Mormon is because like they could hide the Irishness inside of saying, hey, no, we're Mormon, you know what I mean? But that's just a hunch. But if I were Ida B. Wells or what's her name from the 1619 Project, I could just announce that as if it were true. Right. Because that's the type of history fudging you're allowed to do and that stuff. But there's no collective responsibility like that, you schniggleditzes, and especially when you're talking to people who have beliefs like the 13 Articles of Faith.
Responsibility for as white, straight, heterosexual, European descent males.
If you've been blessed,
if we're deflecting it to look at all the great things white people have done, I think we're not sitting in the responsibility we may have collectively.
What responsibility may we have collectively, John DeLynn? Get some 250,000 a year podcast and weep about it. That's what we got to do to
white
redeem our souls. There's 80 mentions of whiteness in here, and I'm still not. I want to get to the one where he starts boobing and crying about it, which I think is.
This is not a white thing. This is my point. You're trying to make it a racist incident.
You're trying to make it. You're an hour and 40 minutes into her. Trying to make it racist thing. This is what I say. Like he has that whole podcast where he says, Richard Bush needs to come back on the show, and then I want you to come back on the show and answer for this and answer for this and answer for this. And so it's like he's doing that collective thing a little bit too. Like, let me sit you down and make you answer for everything that anybody who's even tangentially related to stuff you believe in ever said or thought or did.
Yeah.
As white men of European descent, our
adequate still going. This isn't the same thing. He's just regurgitating the same crap. Like that's already like 10 minutes later, probably.
Yeah.
Come on.
What I'm saying is that it's not a white only thing.
I'm not saying that.
Every race has done miserable, awful things to other races and other people.
I'm just saying that's deflection.
And John, remind me the point again of why you need to.
You stop and have your struggle session.
Why you were bringing that up? Just remind me.
Because you need to have a struggle session. We need to make sure that you have that struggle session. Oh my goodness. Let's see how far are we. Oh, it's every 2 minutes. I've skipped like 15 of them there.
Exterminate the Brutes. Our history of white people subjugating people of color, teaching racist things, enslaving, genocide of Native Americans. Right. Our history is so atrocious, so terrible, so awful.
Is it the worst ever, John Lynn? There's nobody else.
And we're the only ones who ever did it.
Yeah.
Of white people subjugating people as white people, and then to really think hard about, are there things we can do now? Whether it's
Are there things that we've already done for the past 250 years, John Lynn? Are there things like if you go into critical race theory, the concept is anything that you do is just more of your interest convergence, like making money off of doing this. You know, you can't actually be on the side of the stuff, and everything that we do only further hides our racism. You know, it doesn't ever ameliorate anything.
people as white people, and then to really think hard about, are there things we can do now?
What are you doing besides haranguing this guy? You're haranguing. All you do is harangue other people.
It's with legal system, whether it's with the judicial system.
Whoa! Let me regurgitate some general precepts of critical race theory and say that I'm not a critical race theorist when I get.
Whether it's with poverty, all those things. Are there things we can do now to try and make it better?
Make it better. Make it better, as if we hadn't already done many of those things. Well, we could do it. We can make it more better. A more perfect union. That's why it's in the Constitution that we can do that. But no, they say you got to get rid of that Constitution.
To try and right the wrongs, to actually try and right the wrongs. You don't have to answer that. I just needed to say what I think. That's what I think.
I just needed to do my
for the
versus
last 2 hours
to keep my money coming in.
And I think we've given you a chance to make clear what you think. Kara, is there anything else you want to add?
As somebody who was very much a more like, call it right-leaning person who probably would have been very defensive to what you just said 3 years ago. John.
That would have been white fragility, and now you're better because Robin DiAngelo says you can get better. Oh wait, no.
It's interest convergence.
You can't get better.
Let me kind of rephrase so that it would have made better sense to explain it to me 3 years ago in these terms, that all of the genocide and all of the subjugation that definitely happened and I would have agreed with, I was not aware, I was not educated on the ways that those systemic problems still exist.
The systemic races, systems of systems.
Okay. And so when you say like that us white people, it makes it sound like, yeah, like Rod was saying, like we're flogging ourselves,
Yes, you are.
Rod, as just like a friend, don't use flogging again in terms of racial things. It was just like bad.
Even that's racist.
Oh, I said it.
Okay, but anyway, but like, I would have been like, oh, you're trying to beat up on white people. You're trying to make me hate my race. There's all this stuff. A better way to phrase it, I think, is just what are things that I have? I know privilege is a word that's thrown around a lot, but are there certain advantages that I have that a Black person has never, or statistically would not be able to have and enjoy?
None of this.
I don't know. I don't hear it every day.
None of this is critical race theory.
In hospitals as much as a white woman of her same socioeconomic.
Yeah, I talk to people and say, like, would you have been sitting around navel gazing talking about this in 2007?
Right.
Like, you've all been through it, and you didn't even like stop and smell your armpits and realize that.
Yeah.
Background or things like that. So something that a woman with the exact same in every way, but has different skin color and maybe comes from a different neighborhood, is not cared for with the brutality that I would never have to experience. So what is different skin colors? Because unless you
are racists. You're racist. You're racist now. You're obsessed and think everything starts.
Because I grew up in a white neighborhood, so I wouldn't have to worry about that.
Everything starts and is centered around skin color. You are trained to have the critical eye to start and have everything around skin color and just regurgitate some talking points. There can't be a counterfactual. If you come up with something that shows it as to not be that way in a situation, you're not allowed to point to that situation and say this situation was not
about it. And we say, I'm a white person. I don't have to experience certain things. You're a Black person. You do have to experience those things. Tell me all about it. Hey, everyone who exists in this field of study,
or let me
medicine,
tell you about
or journalism, or like.
We've been all ears to hear about actual events. And if it comes across an actual event, nobody likes it because it's too easy to say, hey, that was obviously a racist event. They like the events that are fudgy and fuzzy and irritate people, because then when you irritate people, you can say they've got the fragility.
There are still systemic problems that people that I don't ever, as me as a white.
There's Satan. There's Satan floating around out there. There's the evil secret thing. There's the Well, this is like I say, you guys are in the conspiracy.
Woman, me as a straight person, that I don't ever have to deal with. Hey, medical field, listen to the people who still have systemic leftovers. Hey, people in the military, listen to people who still have systemic leftovers. Hey, people in the police.
Yeah, be real precise about it, please. Please be really accurate and really based off of evidence. Oh wait, we can't use evidence. We just have to take this flighty claim and roll with it, and then just sit around and flog ourselves about it and keep up with the message and never actually examine if we're really doing anything.
Well, that's just it. Is person her, like everything she says, she knows that like, oh, I'm a white person, so my lived experience doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? But I can imagine what it might like. Well, no, I can't. I can't imagine what. I know there are things that I don't have to worry about.
Be served by your system, but are also at a disadvantage because of all of the genocide and the slavery that John just mentioned. So that's what I think John was trying to get across. I just wanted to explain it for my brain, 3 years old.
I see the word super down there. Do you think it's John that said it, or do you think it's she that said it?
It's super. It's super.
Let's see if who
Not
said
to
it.
care. And that's super unfortunate.
She's the one who said super. Oh my gosh.
Because the type of Christ that I worshipped when I was a Christian.
Oh,
just wait till John starts talking, though. He'll say it.
So.
Okay. Well, just a couple of final.
That was a bunch of gobbledygook.
Final comments, I guess, as far as this particular thing is concerned, and that is when it comes down to man, so many different thoughts going through my head to some extent focus on. Like, for example, instead of basically condemning ourselves because we're white straight guys and so forth, who is it that basically went to war?
Uh-oh. You brought up the thing where like 4 million slaves were freed at the time of the slavery, but how many millions of white 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds were marched right down machine gun nest?
And fought and died so that nobody, not blacks, not Asians, or not even whites, would be ever slaves again. What nation was it that brought that idea out and basically stopped slavery to a large extent throughout the world? It was.
Is bringing up this point why he melts down? I can't remember why he just suddenly melts down and goes, no, I can't.
Well, because he's bringing up some really, really relevant, points that they can't really counter.
Primarily, it was white males that fought in the Civil War.
I just want to say among
and
that is what made him melt down, is that he brought up a good point that he didn't have anything to say about. I just want to say that I'm uncomfortable.
Is that what she said?
That's what he says. Listen,
it was white males that fought in the Civil War.
I just want to say among
and
hold on.
Hold on. Don't talk about the 30 million white males who went down machine gun nests across a couple decades. Dude, hold on. Let me look at my face. I totally know about this stuff. I'm educated. Let me educate it. Yeah. No.
And ended
hold on.
slavery.
If your point, hold on, Rod. Okay. If your point is that white people have done good things,
right?
No one will deny that.
Okay.
But also, if you want to talk about the reasons why the Civil War was fought,
you got to study harder. There are people who will deny that.
That is way too nuanced to get into when we have like 5 minutes left.
Way too nuanced to get into, because it was like a white guy who made the 20-30 million white guys kill themselves because they're the same thing because of skin color, because you're a racist.
But if your point is white people have done some good things in the past, I agree. Go with that. All right. White people are not completely terrible. Nobody says they all are. Just saying, okay.
Well,
so they've done.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
It sort of sounds like it when you go through a litany of all the bad things that white people have done.
That's not the argument I'm making.
But,
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. We just saw it. Yeah, it was.
The straw man. I'm just saying.
No, it isn't. You said you wanted to just focus this whole entire argument, like people have the past 4, 5, 6, 7 years of navel gazing and all of our badness, and just sitting in your filth for your new little religion.
Yep.
We as a people sufficiently understood and
Repented
grasped the pain and the suffering that we've done.
Yeah.
Or have we just
that we've benefited from?
That we've benefited from.
Who else benefited from? He was just talking about who else benefited.
Somebody has cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
That we don't have to
That's why you should
quantify that.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, how do you even quantify that?
Don't worry about
How do you say when
quantifying
is
it,
enough
Rod.
is enough?
Don't worry about quantifying about it. Just feel guilty. Just make sure you're on the guilty side. You're on the side of feeling guilty about things.
When is the repentance enough and it's finished and we're done?
I don't know.
The repentance is over.
I just think we're not there yet.
Don't let he
Oh,
run.
you're so brave. Oh, it's just so serious and it's so serious and true and virtuous. Like I feel the virtue. Oh my God, it's so virtuous.
Rod, wait.
Okay.
Oh, don't look at your
Look at that virtue too. Oh, it's so virtuous. They're teaching. They're teaching them. They're teaching them.
Look at Don't let the need to quantify it.
Don't let the need for evidence or to look at things in a sort of way that's provable
Scare you from just getting started.
Look at that face. You're regurgitating crap you've heard from other people, and you think you're teaching somebody something about being smart.
Don't let this when will it be enough
I
idea.
think we have started, and hopefully we'll continue on the path. But
The living
going back and
embodiment
trying
of
to
More than
smugness.
started. It's way beyond started. We've
reverse
gone so far that now we have an autoimmune disorder.
Mm-hmm.
time and go back and try to fix something that was 150 years ago or 200 years ago, I think is unrealistic.
Not
And
trying to
it's-
reverse time, just trying to make it better now if we can.
If we can. Well, what if you're making it worse now? If you are, Jonathan, what if there's even actually studies into these types of ideas and trainings that prove that they exacerbate rather than ameliorate racial tensions? Are you making it better in your utilitarian method of ends justify the means, make everybody feel better, bullcrap, psychology?
well, that's what I'm totally with you, John. I mean, I think we
This is why this stuff is horror for the psychology area. Like, there's so many different psychologists who are coming out and talking about it now. That some guys will go in and like start talking about whatever issues or problems they have, and they have some woke John DeLynn psychologist to start trying to tell them, well, first thing first, we gotta get you to think about your white privilege here, buddy.
trying to make
I'm a psychologist and I studied how to.
it better now. But that does not necessarily quantify to basically that we have to, pay reparations in a monetary
What
standpoint
about
or
just
whatever.
let's forget reparations. Let's
just-
talk about just
yeah.
in terms of the LDS Church.
Yeah.
In terms of
That's a good
the
point.
the leftovers after 1978. That if you ask just about any person of color in the church, whether they're like Native American or of
Well, I've talked
African
to Alex
descent,
Boyer.
Ask Tarek LaCour.
What'd you say?
Ask Tarek LaCour.
You know what? Maybe we should hurry and switch seats because, so there's still
Yeah, that's a
racism out
reality.
there.
I think we should.
No, but nobody's denying that.
yeah.
I think we
Okay.
should. I think we should probably end.
But yeah,
It's got such the feeling of like there's been so many times like when I was on a mission or something and somebody was like, guys, I don't feel the spirit. I don't feel the spirit right now. And we need to stop talking about this right now. Why? Somebody's
Something
talking
you don't
about
have-
red hot chili peppers or something like that. Like, guys. And then the person who stops like a whole quorum of people to say, you guys are not feeling the spirit right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure John DeLynn was that guy in his time, and now he's that guy again in
Yeah.
his new religion.
So-
All right, we're done. I was
Yeah.
gonna wrap it up because Mormonism Live is about to start, guys. Everyone, go switch over.
All right.
listen, John,
Well-
thank you. And
For what? For the thank you for putting me through a struggle session of stuff I didn't do.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Rod.
Kara,
Well, I didn't plan on this episode being about race. That wasn't my intent.
Yeah, it was. It's you're gonna go there all the time anyway. And you
That
don't
wasn't
want
my intent. I just steered it that way for 2 hours.
2 hours and
It's
20
just where
minutes.
it went.
it went there.
But I'm glad
It's
we
just where it will always go.
Oh,
It's where you
yeah.
guys go.
talked about it because we were going to have to at one point or another.
Yeah. It's
Um,
not my wheelhouse typically, but hopefully
But you gotta apologize for it. You gotta.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things we can do better.
Yeah.
And we need to do better. And there's been things that we've done wrong in the past, and I think that's clear.
Yeah.
Let's just move forward and move forward with faith and move and that we can do better. That we agree on that?
We can do better.
Yeah.
Yep. I will summarize in my dad is a supporter of yours, by the way. My dad, good old
Shout out to
Phil,
your dad.
Good old Phil, shout out. One of his
Thanks, Phil.
favorite phrases.
Make sure to
You
have a bunch of disdain for your pop.
That's the thing that drives me nuts is that these guys have more of an eternal like perfectionism problem than anybody ever did in the church. I mean, we're so hyper so hyper aware of the perfectionism, like requirements of the church. But I don't get the anxiety about it that these guys have. And the thing about it is it's obviously going to be an internal struggle session with no forgiveness, because, well, we can't forgive that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is like, it is full on Puritanism. It's why I do call it like religion 2.0. Some people don't like it, but it really is. It's like the stuff religion is getting better at is forgiving itself for and being less intense about. It's like those people like said, well, I'll go get out of here and jump into the other side of it where I can get right back into being black and white, universally intense, catastrophize everything, see everything as absolute black and white, see everything as good guys and bad guys and evil guys and original sin that we can't wash off our hands and that sort of stuff.
The only thing that I would say about that this religion lacks is doctrine of atonement.
Yeah, they don't have any of it.
They don't have it. It's just endless torment in hell, right?
That we both agree on is, thank goodness that we're not where we used to be.
But you can make $236,000 doing it.
And thank goodness that we're not. Oh, I forgot it. Sorry, Dad. It's the main point is, thank goodness we're not where we used to be, and that's one sentiment.
Oh, if you talk to a critical race theorist, it's just hidden.
That I can agree on.
And you guys hide it more than this other guy hides it. You hide it more.
And I have to always look at what got us to move forward. Why aren't we?
There's no such thing as going back. There's no cyclical nature.
Have you really moved forward?
Yeah.
You know,
the thing is like, I mean, Dave Rubin forever ago kind of got a meme about it, about him calling them regressives and all that sort of stuff. But there is a concept in their world that you can only do the Hegelian future. Everything's going to go towards the future that's got to be better, and it's going to get us to that eye at the end of time that's just going to be all improvement. And that's one area where I would say Benson is better, talking about the cycle of pride, talking about things in history. If you do actually have any sort of understanding of history and reality, is that things cycle through, and we're cycling back into a racism, some galaxy brain style racism. You guys are cycling us right back into it. We're not on this trajectory of eternal betterness. We're cycling right back into it.
Right.
And most people, I mean, Peterson points out through history, most genocides happened because of successful minorities. Most genocides were of successful minorities, like of the Jews or of the Young Turks when they took out the Armenians. A ton of genocides in history were, as soon as the successful minority became a minority, they got ousted.
Right.
Why aren't we where we used to be? And you and I could probably disagree on why we aren't where we used to be. Yeah. But we have to thank goodness.
I'm sure yours are going to be based in facts, and his are going to be wait a minute. No, I think the table's turned right there. His are going to be based in facts, and yours are going to be based on feelings.
I totally agree.
There's
probably been political pressure that has been applied in certain different areas and so forth. And we can talk about that in a future episode.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to sit in the hot seat. And I didn't intend this to be so intense. Karen, Jen were waving at me saying, chill out, John. We can chill out. You're getting too animated. I was drooling at one point with spittle down my mouth. I'm sorry that I hope I didn't.
Well, if you level headed, you drool out both sides of your mouth. Right?
I hope you don't feel disrespected. I meant no disrespect. I didn't even intend this episode to go here.
You've been actually, I think, is like a good journalist. You're prying. You're trying to get information and so forth, and I think that's good journalism as far as that's concerned.
Thanks. And we still have to talk about just your basic.
I think it's wrapping up, but I think there is. I mean, I might delete some of this out, but I think there is one more time where he hard stops.
Mormon beliefs, which we won't have covered enough today, or in this episode, and then we still have to get to the Heartland model, which was actually the main reason we brought you on. So we're gonna have to have a
the main reason was to talk about the genetics and the DNA stuff. But
that'll be a whole another day. Another time.
We got one thing done for sure. Well, two things done. We got your story out, which I'm really glad we did. That's what Mormon Stories is at its core.
That was
this.
Not many people know that. I've not shared that because again, it's not about me. It's about the research.
Well, this may be the most comprehensive interview you ever do about your story, and so we got to do that.
Possibility,
And then we got to talk
So
about
you're
race
welcome.
in depth, whether or not we did it, saying Gerardo should have been here. We tried to get Gerardo.
Oh, this is where it's
color.
at.
It's acknowledged we should have had people of color in this space. People are saying Gerardo should have been
back that
here.
up
Whether or
again.
not we did a good job, I'll just acknowledge we should have had people of color. Got to talk about race in depth. Whether or not we did a good job, I'll just acknowledge we should have had people of color in this space. People are saying Gerardo should have been here. We tried to get Gerardo to come. Yeah, last
Well,
minute
where
vote
are you,
thing.
Ron?
Why would Gerardo be allowed to talk about it? Gerardo's just a white adjacent Hispanic.
Sorry, we didn't have our token POC with us today.
He doesn't count enough. You know, the Latinos, if they have the wrong belief, they're white. If they have the right belief, they can be a POC. But
We should have had people of African descent in this discussion.
oh, you should. It's so embarrassing for you.
So,
But you have our commitment, Mormon Stories listeners, that we have lots of awesome guests lined up in the future.
we hope to.
So not because we're like trying to fill a quota, honestly, genuinely because
Oh no,
No,
it's
no,
not
no,
because of
no.
that. It's not that at all.
We didn't just allude to that right now.
It's that, you screwballs.
because we all kind of in this post-Mormon, progressive Mormon, or Orthodox Mormon, or fundamentalist Mormon, it all does center around race. And so people of color actually sitting in
It
the
all centers around race, huh? That's where the center is.
chair and telling us their
You guys made it the center, you racists.
experiences is so important for us to understand everything else, that no pun intended colors a lot of things here. So it's really important that we have people who have been affected by these policies and these doctrines here. So you don't worry, you have our commitment on that.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah. So thank you. Well, I'll just add one more comment. Melissa writes, stop the bleeding. White people talking about race is uncomfortable. I agree. Our apologies to anyone who felt disrespected or embarrassed.
Go through the repentance process.
My apologies, flat, full stop. For any people of color that heard this and felt disrespected, or that felt like we didn't do it justice, or that we had no business even talking about this.
You're so embarrassing. I'd be equally embarrassed to be this as to be the guy who I really was some blackface minstrel dancer like in 2005 thinking it was funny or something like that. I would be embarrassed to be this. I would be embarrassed to be the one sitting here putting on this virtue signal display and suddenly start acting like you're, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. White people should not be talking about race at all.
Yeah.
How about
we should have had a few other people of color on here.
Let me just say one last thing, and that is basically, I think that you and I are in complete agreement. All of us are in agreement that God loves every single one of his children here.
They're atheists, man.
Yeah.
Period.
And how about we all denounce racism in any form?
Ding, ding, ding. Oh, he's a champion. You're the best around. Nothing's ever gonna bring you down.
Past, present, or future.
Oh, it's so performative.
He's like, really? Did we not just like resolve this?
Yeah.
He's like, we're going back in for another round.
Well, because he didn't realize, I don't think, that he said God loves children. They don't like that representation. So they have to turn to their God, which is acknowledge your racism, which really is their God.
Right.
All right. So we still hope at some point in the future to cover Rod's Mormon beliefs.
Which we didn't do at all.
If he decides to come back on the show again.
Let me show this clip right here. Jonathan Streeter just posted this today. I thought it was hilarious. Somebody made a post on Mormon Stories about don't use black people emojis because that's like doing blackface. And so Streeters posted this. Mexican word of the day, July. You told me there would be fewer puritanical, hyper-moralistic judgments outside the church, but July. And then, of course, he has to put up here, too, that his mom's 100% Mexican.
Yeah. It used to just be funner when we could, like, laugh at ourselves. You know what I mean? The dissolution in the woke religion of comedy it's really sad, man.
This was going to be the only video. It's always started out with, and we're just now getting to it.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll zip through it. But this is once again, and this just came out today. Dev, Shortfatotaku, talking about this. Let's just go. The religion of wokeness. There's been so much writing about it, but it just is now. It is.
It's been said that radical feminism or social justice.
There's some level of like where you stop and you compare it to different religions, and it like all kind of fits. But at the same time too, you just need to stop and say it is its religion.
Mhm.
Like John doing that performative spiritual virtue stuff. Like when the other guy says God loves all children, he's kind of like saying that to be religiously heartfelt. John saying, and examine our racism is that's him doing his version of a religious thing. It doesn't have to be an exact one-to-one. That doesn't sound like God loves you. But it is the same mode.
Wokeism or leftism in general is a religion. In fact, it's been said so often it's almost become a meme at this point. But how true do you think the statement actually is? Well, wokeism
100%
does contain the mechanistic aspects of a religious faith. It has symbols that one can proudly wear or display, packed full of meaning for any believer.
I thought about that. I was driving around, and I was during July, so it was Pride Month, and you see all the gay flags, all the whatever flag that they got going at the time, and I was just like, I wonder how long it could stay up if somebody put a CTR flag on their house. You know, like a green flag with the CTR shield on it. I wonder how long that person's flag would stay up on their house.
I think that's funny. Why is the communist flag there with the Black Lives Matter flag there with the gay rights flag? Like, why do those all go together?
Any believer who sees them. It has patron saints, people whose tragic life stories or heroic actions teach us about the world and humanity. It has rituals that are akin to religious services, including reciting passages and body performance. And people are really leaning into this stuff unironically, all on their own. What if the period between June 19th and July 4th were to become an annual 16-day season of remembrance and renewal, an honest accounting of the unfulfilled promise of liberty and equality? Hell, it's even got a tithe. So I found out that my coworker has been selling gay indulgences, and honestly, what a genius she is. Her best friend loves Chick-fil-A and always feels guilty about it. So Steph just told her once, listen, if you eat there, send me $20 and all is forgiven. And she did it, and she's still doing it. We're working, and Steph gets a notification and just goes, oh, Elle just sent me the lesbian forgiveness tax for Chick-fil-A. And I went, what? All straight people who've ever eaten at Chick-fil-A cash app a queer person $20 immediately. It's not just queer people, though. Black activists, fat activists, wokest of all types regularly hold seminars where people pay for the privilege of getting lectured at about how oppressive they are. I guess capitalism's good if you're the one making the money. And of course, there's the holy texts. Can't forget about those. From the economic stuff like Marx's work or the cultural stuff like Robin DiAngelo. They're all treated like a Bible by these leftoids. They all contain vague, flowery language with a wide variety of interpretations. They all contain failed predictions of the future of society. They've all inspired rival factions to claim to have the real interpretation of the scripture. And these factions regularly fight each other for dominance. They're all treated as the infallible truth by privileged, self-righteous white people. And non-believers, especially non-believers that aren't white, need to be educated and converted.
We just watched some of that happening.
Mm-hmm.
We just watched a religious missionary session.
Yep.
Even got their own religious celebrations. And you know what? For a little bit, just a little bit there, this might have actually been reasonable before they overreached, as they always do. For a while, we had Pride Day, otherwise known as Stonewall Day, on the last Saturday of June in remembrance of the Stonewall riots. This riot began the modern gay rights movement. And within months, thousands of gay advocacy groups began opening across the United States. At the first year anniversary of Stonewall, it was celebrated by a parade and demonstration. So yeah, it's not hard to see how such an event can be turned into a yearly holiday. And it's also not hard to see how that can be spun into a religious context. But soon enough, we had Pride Week instead of just Pride. And all right.
I remember last year something like upset Delenn or something like that on Pride Week. And they said, how dare you guys do this? And on Pride Week of all weeks.
Nearly a week. But then at some point it became Pride Month. I know this officially started happening around 1999, but people only really started hardcore celebrating it like the whole month, around 7 or 8 years ago. At that time, the entire month of June became rainbow coded. You see flags everywhere, parades all over. Every corporation changes their avatar to the Pride variant, unless they're in the Middle East anyway. And the question remains, why a whole month? The only answer I can think of is because it's become a competition to compete with February's Black History Month. And then it became 2 months. October is now LGBT History Month. It's LGBT Pride in June and LGBT History in October. Okay, I got it. But not to be outdone, the Black advocates have began to call for a Black History Year. That's right. Fuck your 2 months, gays. The Blacks are going to have all 12 of them. The backlash against critical race theory has now become a crusade to delete Blackness from the national story. Young people deserve to know the complete American history this month and the 11 others. No, the backlash against CRT isn't about anti-Black racism. It's about opposing anti-white racism. This isn't about the history of Black individuals and the events that they were involved in. Capital B, Black, is a political distinction. This is called political blackness. And it's how you can be both Black and not Black at the same time.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't Black.
If you're a Black person, you're lowercase b Black. If you've got the right progressive intersectional race politics, the battle over what conservatives mislabel as critical race theory has been raging across the country ever since the summer of 2020.
The thing that's so funny is like all the people who are actually against it, I will bet you, I would put money down any old time that the people who are upset and angry about it have read way more than the people who haven't, just like the situation with Vaush and James Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
We come across like Quick has read like D'Angelo and Kendi and all that sort of stuff. I promise some of the people who like get mad and bark at him haven't read any of it.
Yeah.
Black Lives and anti-racism has been a campaign aimed at deleting blackness from the national story. No, you morons. The backlash to CRT has been because it's racist. It's because you went back to a pre-Jim Crow mentality of segregating kids in schools because black people need a black space. It's literally just colored water fountains all over again, but the sign reads people of colored water fountains instead. You guys are racists. All right, we're getting a little bit off track here. The point I'm making is capital B black is politically black. It's an ideology with rituals and rules, and it's a component of the larger wokest religion. And I do think it qualifies as a religion. Rousseau, in his book On the Social Contract, coined the term civil religion. As he describes it, a civil religion is a belief system that helps to unify the state by providing it with a sacred source of its authority. In Rousseau's view, this is why political leaders often appeal to God or more organized forms of religion as not only a source of their personal morality, but also as a source of guidance for their decisions in the management of the state. Many of the mechanisms of patriotism simultaneously appeal to the authority of organized religion while also fulfilling the ritualistic requirements of the civil religion. For example, when a crowd at a public gathering begins to sing a nation's national anthem, all of these rituals are secular, but use the language and appearance of religion, not to make a statement about the divine, but to impress upon people the sanctity of the society in which they live. So when people say wokeism is a religion, that's not just a pithy atheist remark with the closed-mindedness of progressives. Wokeism actually fits the bill of a civil religion.
James Lindsay did a long essay on it in New Discourses.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually looked up the legal definition of what should be called religion, and it fits the bill. It says something about the nature of reality and then something about the nature of your being. It's like, it's actually really simple.
Right.
In service of a potential future revolutionary socialist society, one which they want to create. And part of building the dual power structures that Lenin talked about as a prerequisite for being able to overthrow a current power structure is the creation of a social counter-hegemony to challenge the current liberal capitalist social orthodoxy, which is what Gramsci wrote about in the prison notebooks. Progressive ideology as a civil religion is a step in the direction of socialist subversion. Wokeism's religious aspect should be clear by now. Its heavy focus on guilt, where the only carrot is the hope of redemption, a hope that is increasingly more slim during these cancel culture days. Its strong dogmatism, where humor becomes suspicious as it signifies a lack of seriousness. It's divisive moralism, where there's no...
Let me see if this list. We've seen anything like that list happen recently, where somebody's got like heavy focus on guilt,
not at all.
Strong dogmatic tendency, divisive moralism.
Room for fence sitting or neutral ground. It's ritualistic conformity, where you must publicly and actively show your belief in the form of virtue signal. It's enabling of a strong personal zealotry. You know those stories of families being ripped apart when a person becomes a born-again Christian and their newfound extremism drives others away? Well, we see that with college students coming home from the summer with their purple hair too. But it's also important to notice what functions that the wokest religion.
That's the whole list.
Well, we see
like
Delayed and Kara. This describes what you just did.
So it's so interesting to me because it's like just in hearing like people who, and maybe you can speak to this better than I can because I haven't done this, but you know, exiting of the faith, religions being kind of pushed down their throat, but then now we're going to expect everybody should believe in our religion. It's like, no, sorry, I don't believe in your religion. I don't believe in those doctrines. As a society now, we are indoctrinated with these doctrines and everybody has to believe them. You have to conform to our rituals and our rights and our doctrines.
It immediately identifies you to fellow believers and becomes a part of your identity. 2, it creates a
or you're a sinner.
Cohesive public-facing identity, although that doesn't stay very cohesive. It turns into the circular firing squad real easy.
In Germany, the collective guilt post-World War II created an interesting concept called guilt pride. The Germans felt that if they properly adopted their guilt and defined themselves by it, they could take pride in being morally superior. As their guilt is larger than everyone else's, so is their burden of carrying it. That social justice-y, I'm better than you attitude.
Am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm better than you. Okay? Much better than you. You are garbage.
Yes, that, thanks Anna, is based in an American adaptation of guilt pride, but adopting the sins of our ancestors in terms of slavery and segregation.
She said that again recently. Actual Justice Warrior did a whole other video on it. She keeps circling back into it.
Provides us a moral high ground. And 3, it also creates a new form of manifest destiny. The leftist is guided by a missionary zeal to convert the whole world to his politics, like a Christian or a Muslim might be to convert the whole world to his religion. This is why socialists require
Got to bring it to the world in our wars and our big pink tanks.
A worldwide workers' revolution. And it's not real socialism if somebody else somewhere else isn't doing it. In this way, socialism is a totalitarian ideology. And social justice or wokeism or progressivism or whatever you want to call it is the civil religion that people on the left believe in, using it as a tool to move towards their ultimate political goals. Of all of these terms, social justice, progressivism, wokeism, I prefer wokeism. It's got an appropriately religious connotation, the idea of awakening, the scales falling from your eyes. But like any religion, civil or otherwise, it has serious problems. Christianity may preach about love and peace. We can find atrocities committed in the name of Christ. Americanism may preach about liberty and freedom. We can also find similar atrocities. And sometimes they didn't embody the values well, and there was no virtue to be found there. Can the same claim be made about wokeism? Does wokeism embody the values of equality and justice? I mean, yeah. Did it invent them? No. Did it co-opt them? Yes. Does it embody them poorly sometimes, such that there is no virtue? Absolutely. But does it sometimes embody them well? That's the million-dollar question. Does wokeism sometimes embody the values of justice and equality well?
I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
I'm not sure that it does. Racial justice, social justice is not true justice because there's nothing just about taking from somebody solely because of their race or gender or sexuality, even if it's to right a historical wrong. The problem being, how do you help those who need help through no fault of their own? And a far better value to solve this problem is fairness, and there is no fairness found in wokeism. So my answer is ultimately no. Wokeism does not embody the value of justice. So what does this all mean? Well, social justice or feminism or wokeism or progressivism or leftism, it does function like a religion. The memes are accurate, but it's a civil religion. It's got its holy texts, its gods, its saints, its Satan, its heaven and hell. It's got its rituals and its statements of faith. It's got its dogmatism, its closed-mindedness, and its expansionism. When a leftoid demands that you comply with whatever it is, sloganeering, pronouns, power politics, whatever, they're asking you for submission in the same way that a religious person would submit to God. And if you display to them that you might not actually believe in their religion, they will show you the intolerance that they embody when dealing with any infidel. Understanding these facts will show you why these people are so hard to reason with, why they reject good faith conversation, and they close their eyes to well-constructed arguments against their position. They're operating on fanaticism, not critical thinking, as much as they may appeal to the latter. This is why I don't believe that any woke capitalists or woke liberals are in fact liberals. Best case scenario is they're useful idiots for the socialists. More likely, they're just socialist subversives themselves, who are advocating for change not because they think it's good in itself, but because it serves as a stepping stone towards revolution.
That's a good video.
It, as we also looked at, same stuff seeping into the actual religious side.
This is what trips me out about what's going on at BYU, but also with the church news, because I don't think that, and Quicks even kind of mentioned this, but he put out a video just recently that President Nelson's thoughts on rooting out racism is not the same as CRT. It's not the same as that at all. And it gets conflated though. It gets conflated because, you know, these messages that come from people who are leftists and people who are leftists within the church. Listen, you can't have two religions. At some point, you're going to have to choose which high demand religion you want to go with, you know, at some point, because at some point there will be an inevitable split.
Yeah,
there has to be.
Those evangelicals will push it, they'll force it, and then the other side they'll go right along with it, just in the sense of like, yeah, get out of our faces. Anything else to be said on this? That kind of went a wild route, but I guess it all kind of like makes sense together.
That's why I prefer to believe in a religion that has a focus on charity, has a focus on faith, has a focus on forgiveness and repentance and on an individual level.
Yeah.
So
I think that's why Quick's trying to make the point. I keep calling him Quick, but it's probably easier to say that so people look up Quick. But
right.
He says it's got to focus on love, and these types of things don't focus on love. It's all focused on guilt and focus on the critical eye and focus on tearing down. And they think that they're doing it to save all our souls.
Right. When we look back to in history, people want to get so tripped up on the events of the past and even in some of the writings. I don't know why it says certain things within the Book of Mormon, but at the same time, I do know that it's not just the Book of Mormon. It's all those texts, and it's the history of people and people being different. And yes, there is in-group bias, and it actually has a function. But that's the thing: in-group bias doesn't mean racism. Just like you wouldn't let any stranger come into your house and sleep in the same room as your daughter. I'm just saying that it doesn't matter. We have gained a lot of knowledge, and we've become a wiser and a smarter people since those times. And we can be more tolerant and understanding and forgiving of one another, and especially of ourselves, and especially of our past too. And so that's what I believe in,
Yeah, for sure. Me too. But I don't think any of that stuff can start happening seriously until this crap winds down. The posing and the faking and the bullcrap virtue signaling. It's whatever it was I disliked about Mormonism or religion when I was in it. It was that, and they brought it out of it. And the very first thing I ever said about on the Midnight Mormons is that maybe it's getting cleaned out itself, because everybody
that's the thing is even clicking back, there's one of the things that he had on that laundry list was, is Puritanism intrinsic to religion? It's not doctrinal. It's not doctrinal within the church. It's not doctrinal within any denomination that I am aware of. It's just what happens when people in an organization get together. And it doesn't matter if it's a real tightly organized or loosely organized. Whenever you get people together, somebody in that group is going to be thinking about themselves and is going to be imposing that upon other people, no matter what.
Yeah. Pharisees go to where the scolding is best. They flow to it like water.
All right.
Anyway, calling it good?
Yep. Sounds good.
Word.
We'll see you next time.
Later.